Welcome to Engagement Fundraising, where you'll learn how busy fundraisers like you are generating more major and planned gifts at lower costs. Brought to you by iMarketSmart.com. Be the fundraiser you always wanted to be. A quick announcement. As a listener of the podcast, we are making the Engagement Fundraising audiobook available to you free of charge. Just go to iMarketSmart.com/exclusive-podcast-offer. As a thank you for listening, we wanted to give everyone free access to Greg's Engagement Fundraising audiobook that you can get on Audible or Apple Books for $15. Once again, just visit iMarketSmart.com/exclusive-podcast-offer. That's iMarketSmart.com/exclusive-podcast-offer. Thanks for listening to the podcast, and we hope you enjoy Greg's book. Now, on to the episode.
Hi, Tim.
Hi, Greg. How's it going?
It's good. We have a special guest today.
We do. We're not alone today.
We're not. We could play mystery guest, but I don't know if, since we're the only ones who know and there's nobody else here, I guess there's no reason to play mystery guest.
Yeah, that'd be a bit weird.
It would be weird, but okay, it's Bono from U2 there.
We had Bono on earlier, though.
Oh, we did that one already?
Yeah, we did that Bono one. Yeah.
Oh.
That wasn't
Okay.
Aaron was on.
That's right.
Bono
Aaron.
was on,
yeah. Yeah. It's not Bono. No. I just always want Bono to be on.
Yeah, one of these days.
I don't think so, but it would be good. But we have with us today Dan Shephard. Yay!
What? Not Bono?
Not Bono. Unless you want to sing. You could sing if you want, Dan.
Well, in my youth, I aspired to be the next version of Frankie Valli fronting for the Four Seasons, but those days are long gone.
Who the hell is that? What is that?
Youth.
I think I know who that is. I think he's from New Jersey, in fact. So there, forget about it. In fact, I took my mom to a play that was all about Frankie Valli. What was it called? Jersey Boys. He's a Jersey boy from a different era. I'm more like the Bon Jovi Jersey boy. And then there's I guess that's about it. Tim, why don't we talk about fundraising with Dan? How about that?
That sounds great.
Dan, who the hell are you? And why should anybody give a crap what you have to say to our listeners?
As you look at my website for my business, the Shephard Group, you see that I represent myself as the Frontline Fundraiser. And that has to do with my long career where I've held jobs both as a major gift fundraiser and as a planned gift specialist, realizing that in the only place where it matters, the job title isn't the issue, that the person sitting across the coffee table from you wants to know that whoever is representing the nonprofit they care about is competent and trustworthy. So all my work is focused on training and coaching frontline fundraisers, no matter what the job title is.
Cool. So you're a much more polished version of me in some regards because you train people about how to get appointments, how to present themselves, how to present their mission, how to build relationships based on trust, how to help facilitate gifts. But you do it a lot nicer than I do it, I think. Is that
less yelling?
I'm rough around the edges. What do you think, Dan?
Well, I've been doing it for a while, so I've found my voice, my way of introducing and asking and explaining the decision-making process I like to teach the frontline fundraisers who decide they want to work with me. It's all based on the experiences I had over, 30 years talking across coffee tables and conference tables and lunch tables with people who wanted to make significant gifts to the causes I represented.
And just a quick history, what kind of organizations were those?
I started in the performing arts, which goes back to my singing and acting career in high school and college. But that was a failure, so I became a fundraiser. Go figure.
I don't know that many people who say from the moment they were born they wanted to be a fundraiser. We all sort of fell into this area.
It's true. But I spent the first 8 or 9 years of my fundraising career in the performing arts. And I'll tell you without reservation, if you can raise money for the arts, you're a fundraiser. I did a shift in about 1990 into educational development. And most of my career after that was spent in higher education. I've worked with the Florida State University Foundation, Virginia Tech, Pamplin College of Business. I was the gift planner for the Citadel Foundation. And my final gig as a fundraising professional was for the College of Law at Northern Kentucky University. And the most important thing that I figured out was no matter what nonprofit you're representing, no matter how you think you're different or distinctive, there's one thing that is always the same, and that's how you build a meaningful relationship with the donor. It never changes.
It's interesting. I always hear people at organizations saying, well, we're different and our donors are different. And I'm always like, I don't buy that.
It's true. The donor's always the same. The donor wants to do something that matters to the donor relative to the organization you're representing. And one of the things I tell my students constantly is to stop overthinking things, to stop making excuses, to get out of your own way and do the work.
And what is that? What is the work?
The work is building meaningful, intentional donor relationships. It was my great epiphany the day I realized that when the donor said yes, the donor, with or without my help, had made 4 decisions why they cared about the organization enough to let me, a fundraiser, in the living room. Then they decided what they cared about enough that they'd consider a significant gift to support. They decided how they could best afford to do that. And then finally, reflecting on the decisions they had made, why they cared, what they cared about, how they could do something about it. The final reflection was, will I make this gift? Sometimes when it really worked well, they would realize that to themselves, and before I could ask, they would offer the gift because I'd helped them make the decisions. It was revelatory when I figured out that's what happens, and the only thing I can take any credit for is codifying that into a system, a methodology, a language, and that's what I teach.
Brilliant. I love it because I'm always talking about self-solicitation. It's funny because I even just recently saw someone post it on LinkedIn, this myth that the number one reason why people give is because they were asked. And I can't subscribe to that. It's actually because they went through this process that you're describing and they felt that they had enough trust and enough desire, and they felt like they could empower themselves and get benefit for themselves, find meaning in their lives, and do something with somebody who is a facilitator. And when that happens, and it's a beautiful thing, then people come to the table and say, yeah, okay, I'm ready. I want to do this.
Some people, when they say people give because they're asked, are oversimplifying it. And what they want to do is step back and think about, what are we asking them to do? And if we go into a new relationship and immediately ask them to give, well, what do you think the odds are? That means we need to be a little more thoughtful and purposeful in what we ask them for. Asking is absolutely correct, but what we ask them for is where the gifts live. And what we want to ask them is, why do you care? What do you care about? How can I help you find the best way to say yes? So asking yes, but you got to ask the right things.
And this even starts in, and I love how you put this, is it's about beginning with asking for conversations, not asking for gifts. So you want to tell me a little bit about that?
If I wanted to be just another transactional fundraiser who walked in and asked people for the rated gift capacity amount for the latest wealth screening, I was crossing my fingers and hoping that the wealth screener got the amount right. If I wanted to be the gift planning expert, the lazy fundraiser who went into people's homes and asked, are we in your estate plan? Then I realized I was going to leave a whole lot of money on a whole lot of tables. And I decided not to become a transactional, or not to remain a transactional fundraiser. That instead of just asking for those contributions, the outright way or the deferred way, what I really needed to do was to ask people to talk with me about giving. My job is to find the gift, and the way I know to do that is to invite a conversation about giving.
And having that conversation, I gather, begins to uncover the why and the what and the how, right?
Well, doesn't it just make sense hearing it?
Yeah, I know the answer. That was a totally rhetorical question, I know. Tim, what do you think of all this?
My first question is, if you're calling a donor, how do you get them to not hang up before you assure them you're not just going to ask them for a gift?
This is where I get a chance to complement your work with the idea of engaging with people before you start talking with them about giving, to qualify who among your constituents have given you signals that they might be interested to talk with you about making some significant contribution. The key for me in order to get appointments with any purpose was to do a little data mining, not only the data, but the anecdotal research, hoping that my predecessors had done good contact reporting in our database, and I had known what sort of meetings had taken place with this person. Had they been on campus? Had they participated in this? What I call signals. And then I was able to use, in many cases, what I learned from research to figure out when I got on the phone what I was going to say after. Hi, this is Dan Shephard calling from your favorite nonprofit. I want to come visit you because.
So was your approach always to start by asking for the appointment and then backing off if they weren't interested in that?
No, my preference has always been to have the conversation about, why is our nonprofit important to you? What are your favorite memories or experiences? What are your hopes for our future? What matters to you? And those become the generic versions of why I want to come see you when I'm in Pittsburgh 3 weeks from now. It's not perfect, but it sure worked better than, hi, I want to come visit you and talk at you for an hour.
Right. Telling is not selling. Asking questions, finding out about people is, in fact, finding out problems, offering solutions, being a facilitator, being that conduit to give them a VIP experience between where they are and the organization they care about. It's interesting because this always makes sense. It's common sense to be interested in the supporter. And if you were at a party and you're just meeting somebody for the first time, you'd ask them about themselves. You wouldn't just spew a whole bunch of facts and figures and information at them. You'd build trust, right? So we all know that. Then something happens. Too many times fundraisers will make a mistake. What do you see as the biggest mistake that happens?
I think the biggest shortcoming is simply not being intentional. I love Stephen Covey. His 7 Habits of Highly Effective People is my favorite professional book and life guide. And of course, the one we're talking about is the second habit. Begin with the end in mind. That means working intentionally. Working intentionally has been my agenda. It's the through line for every successful donor relationship I've built in the last 10 years.
So in other words, the mistake, if you will, is that often you find that fundraisers are not working intentionally. I find, by the way, that a lot of times, unfortunately, they're pressured by leadership to try and move the relationship further and faster than it really should go, and that you can't skip the why step. You can't skip building trust. You just can't.
Yeah. No, what you just pointed out is a sad truth. There are some fundraising managers who still insist that cash and only cash is king. But building a pipeline, even if it's for my predecessor 10 years in the future, is better than bringing home a pittance of what was possible. But there are some managers who are not going to be convinced of that.
Yeah, I mean, look, from all the years that I've been in sales, and still am really, and had bosses, some of them were really great, frankly. And the way we look at it here at MarketSmart is we look at pipeline, we look at activity, and we look at movement through the pipeline. So if people are moving themselves through the pipeline, that's fantastic. In fact, that's even better. And that's essentially what our technology helps happen, because it's very low cost if you can help people to move themselves through the pipeline, and then even self-solicit is a wonderful thing. Then they just need you to consummate it and finish it off. Wonderful. The whole key here is to try and do this in the most effective and efficient way that's good for the organization, its beneficiaries, and the supporters.
I was an acting student in my first life, I learned the great value and the great joy of rehearsal, of building, of creating, of that process. You can't perform until you've practiced. And what that reminds me of is one of my other favorite books. It's Robert Pirsig's Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance. Greg, I know you've read my white paper on Zen and the Art of Moves Management, in which I talk about the metaphysics of quality, that the quality of relationships can in fact be measured and ought to be measured. What defines a move, for example, from discovery into cultivation? How can you quantify what cultivation means? You have to define what it is. And then once you define it, you can quantify it. How do I know that I'm now in cultivation? And the way I answer that is, if I can answer to myself, am I talking about what they want to accomplish with their gift? Or am I talking about how I can help them find the best way to make that gift? Well, now I'm cultivating something, which means I can measure that move.
Yeah, here's the thing. I'm not a huge fan of the phrase even moves management, and I think it misleads a lot of people. I know that the people who created that concept were well-intentioned, but too many people don't understand what it really means. They think it means moving donors. You can't move donors. You can only offer donors opportunities to move themselves. I think that the problem with it also, and we're going to get real philosophical and then we'll probably not, it's too much about what the fundraiser is going to do or needs to do, and it's not at all or nearly enough about where the donor is and where they feel they are. It should be mostly 90% about the donors. They'll never say, I'm in cultivation.
Right. And by the same token, I cannot imagine looking across a coffee table at somebody on my second or third visit and saying, you know, Greg, I think it's time we move this relationship into cultivation. It just does not happen that way.
No, it's nuts. But here at Market Smart, and look, everything that we do here at Market Smart is exactly what we recommend to our customers. We use the same system. I mean, it's different because we're selling our software and our services, but we're offering information. We're offering people opportunities, and almost always people ask us for the contract. It's almost every time. And we don't close deals. That's the other thing I always tell my people is I'm like, we don't close deals. We just don't. They close themselves. If you've asked the right questions and solved the right problems and there's alignment and trust and everybody's happy, it's just going to close. You don't need to manipulate anybody.
And I'll pick up on one particular phrase in what you just said. Ask right questions and do it with purpose.
Yeah. You have to do it with purpose. As a facilitator, knowing that you're trying to help your supporter solve a problem, if you will. It may be that they want to gain notoriety. Cool. It may be that they want to live on in the minds of their loved ones forever. It may be that they just want to get good seats at the opera. You know?
Yeah. All of those are why. You've got to figure out what his why is and what her why is and pursue that with intent.
Yeah. And you even have to say it like, why?
Yeah.
I love that. This is why I like you. You're classy. He's not laughing.
Oh, you were talking to me there, were you?
Yeah.
Oh, my gosh.
Tim's laughing. That's funny. Tim's laughing at me because he thinks I'm nuts.
All right.
But we got so serious about this for a minute, so I just thought, well,
Thank you. Thank you for lightening the mood.
Poor Dan.
This episode is brought to you by us here at Market Smart and Engagement Fundraising by Greg Warner. In this quick break, I want to remind everyone to go to imarketsmart.com/exclusive-podcast-offer to download the Engagement Fundraising audiobook for free. This offer is only available to listeners of the podcast. It's our way of saying thank you for listening, and we really hope you enjoy the book. Once again, go to imarketsmart.com/exclusive-podcast-offer to take advantage of this promotion, available only to listeners of the podcast. Now, back to the episode.
I see the role of the frontline fundraiser, again, regardless of what the job title is, the person who's sitting across that coffee table, as facilitating an existing relationship. And the relationship, thank goodness, is between the donor and the organization. I say thank goodness because we know that the average tenure on a job for a major gift fundraiser is still only 18 months after all these decades. So the relationship darn well better be between the donor and the institution. So whoever's carrying the business card this year has a chance to further that relationship, which means my job is to facilitate and listen. I've often invited prospective donors to look at me as their honest agent, as their concierge, and do things with them and for them, in addition to asking them for money. I'm in the relationships business. A charitable gift is a pleasant byproduct. It's all about the relationship, and it's not more complicated than that. Now, there's a lot of detail, but stop overthinking it.
Yeah, this is true. And this is where fundraisers need to see themselves as conduits and facilitators and not as money raisers. I mean, you're right. That becomes a byproduct. Same thing with salespeople. Same thing with my staff. In fact, we don't even say upselling. So I banned that phrase here. Like if a customer is buying and spending a certain amount of money with us early on in this company, or from consultants, we'd hear you have to upsell them. Well, we don't use that word anymore. And I got it from a book actually called To Sell is Human. And what he called it was upserving. And the minute that I changed it and said, never use the word upselling around here, everybody's going to say it's upserving. Then all of a sudden, everybody was really happy to do it.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's frustrating even today to hear some usually novice fundraisers turn their noses up at the idea of using proven sales techniques in building donor relationships. And everybody's selling. You're selling something every day. When you ask somebody for a date, you're selling.
Yeah, I mean, look, the first thing a baby learns how to do is manipulate their parents. I pooed in my pants.
I'm going to keep crying until I've sold you on.
Yeah, clean my tuchus. Look, I could talk to you all day, Mr. Dan Shephard, the king of asking for conversations and helping supporters make forward decisions. I like this because it's almost as if I read all your stuff before I wrote my book, but I didn't. Unfortunately, I found you after. But I like your stuff, and I like the fact that it resonates with what I was trying to say in my stuff. I guess you came here first. You win.
No, and I really do want to return that compliment. Reading your book, which I have just finished, it's a great confidence builder that some of the things that I've learned and some of the things that I've chosen to teach and share with others seem to be true from your distinctive perspective, because you found a wonderful voice, a way of explaining to people that engagement is the key to the gift. The relationship is the job. The gift is what happens if you do a good job. So here we are together. You want to go on a date?
Nah, but thank you for the compliment.
Oh, no, this is the date.
So wrapping this up, what have we learned, Tim? Did we learn anything today? I think we learned some stuff.
Yeah.
Dan Shephard is the guy for training on this stuff.
Mm-hmm. Great stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, good stuff.
Yeah.
He likes my book.
Mm-hmm.
That's really good.
Yeah.
He read the whole thing. There's a lot of words in there.
A lot of words.
Some pictures.
Some pictures. Yep.
Pictures. We like pictures.
Don't call and just ask for money right away, because you'll hear a lot of no's that way.
Yeah. You got to be intentional. You have to recognize where the supporter is in the consideration process. Ask for conversations, not gifts.
Use data intelligently to actually talk to the right people.
Be personal and relevant when you reach out to them. Yeah.
And honestly, when you hear this, doesn't it just make sense?
I know it's common sense, but
maybe we should do it this way.
Most people are not all that bright, and common sense is not all that common.
And if you've been hammered in something for a good 10 years or whatever, it takes a bit to unlearn it.
Yeah, this isn't the way we do it. We don't do it. Our donors are different.
and here's my favorite not so hypothetical question. How's that working for you?
Right. Yeah. People never want to answer that. So you're increasing revenues as fast as like Charity Water, right? And they're like, well, not exactly. I'm like, well, why?
Yeah.
I mean, they did it. They're like $150 million organization now in like 8 years or something. How did they do that? Yeah. You guys can't seem to increase revenues by 3%. So let's wrap this up. Go ahead and please direct our listeners to your website, please.
It's, of course, www.thefrontlinefundraiser.com. Email is dan@thefrontlinefundraiser.com. I'm waiting.
Cool. And what's your sign, Dan?
My what?
What's your sign? I'm a Leo.
I'm a Scorpio. I just celebrated my birthday.
Oh, congratulations. What's your blood type?
O negative.
Oh, he knows stuff.
Does.
Okay.
I served in the Army. It's on my dog tags.
Cool. Thank you for service. All right. So wrapping things up, Dan, Shephard, everybody, round of applause. That sounded like falling from a building. It was a little different than a round of applause. You put in a round of applause for us?
Yeah.
Okay, very good.
Yeah.
Maybe a marching band?
Sure, yeah.
Rockets. Do rockets.
Okay.
Dan, thank you. We really appreciate you taking time out of your schedule to chat with us nutcases. Appreciate it.
Guys, it was a hoot. Thanks.
All right. That's it, Tim. It's a wrap.
That's a wrap.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Engage in Fundraising. If you like the show, make sure to review it on iTunes and pass it along to a colleague.
I also wanted to remind everyone to visit imarketsmart.com/exclusive-podcast-offer to download the Engagement Fundraising audiobook for free. Once again, that's imarketsmart.com/exclusive-podcast-offer.
Thanks again for listening to this episode of Engage in Fundraising.